It's Dr. Cassie Smith, and welcome to Back to the Basics, a simple approach to health in the modern world. I appreciate you taking the time to join me today and hopefully learn ways that could help you improve your health. The modern world has left little time to focus on health and wellness. I hope to give you some quick and simple ways to be well and live your best life. Welcome back to this episode of Back to the Basics. I'm Dr. Cassie Smith. Thank you for joining me on our weekly talk about how to become healthier and just overall increase our wellness. So I have a special guest with me today. He's a holistic doctor, kind of like me. So Dr. Russell Van Maele is a DO. He's board certified in internal medicine. He grew up near Detroit, Michigan. He attended Michigan State University, where he got an undergraduate degree in psychology, and he did his DO training as well as his residency. As an osteopathic and holistic physician, he believes the body has its own inherent ability to heal itself through the mind, body, and spirit. He prefers to use lifestyle to treat and counsel his patients. Sleep, diet, nutrition, exercise, and stress management are the pillars of his practice. This is why I asked him to be on the podcast. We have very similar beliefs. His patients are educated patients, and he believes providing proper health education to his patients allows them to navigate towards their health journey on a day-to-day basis. His goal as a physician is to meet you where you are and take the time to truly understand what being healthy means to you. He's honored to be a physician and to be a healer. Outside of his career in medicine, he enjoys spending time with his family, friends, and his dog, Boone. He lives a very active lifestyle and encourages his patients to be active as well. A few of his hobbies include mountain biking, skiing, backpacking, water skiing, running, and fantasy football. Finally, he believes the backbone of his mental health is a strong foundation in his Christian faith. So please help me in welcoming our guest, Dr. Van Maele.
It's
Hi.
nice to be here. Yes, thanks for having me. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah. So, my podcast is just kind of about little things people can do to be healthy. My story and my background is I was a conventional, I call it a recovering regular doctor, where I went to school and kind of put everyone on medicine and, did everything they teach us in school, and nobody really got better. And so I'm interested in hearing, kind of your journey and how you got to where you are. So I guess let's start with that and kind of what you do every day.
Yeah. So, kind of how I got started in medicine, I always knew that I wanted to work with people. I've always been a people person. I jumped around from wanting to be, a physical therapist to a PA. And then I was like, you know what, I want to be a doctor. I want to be in charge. So I went to Michigan State for undergrad, and I would see the DO school was right next door to a lot of my classes. And I got to see how they use their hands and how they used a more holistic approach to medicine. And luckily I got into the school. Believe it or not, I actually got into the school. My story is I actually got into the school for the following year. And so this was heartbreaking for me I would have been 22-year-old. Just graduated undergrad, and then you get a letter saying, hey, congratulations, you got into school, but it's for the next year. And I freaked out a little bit. All of my whole plan got turned upside down. And my parents were the only ones that were excited for me, because I was, like I said, I was heartbroken. But it turned out to be the best year of my life. I got a construction job, worked my butt off for the summer, made enough money, and packed my car, my little Ford Fusion, with everything I had and a pair of skis, and took it to Colorado. And I was a ski bum for a year, and mountain biked, skied, and met some of my best friends to this day. So that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then medical school was great. I ended up wanting to go into internal medicine because I love the idea of taking care of somebody for the long term. I didn't want to be an ER doctor that was just quick out. I wanted continuity of care. And I was ready to do gastroenterology. Like I was ready. The only reason I really did internal medicine was to do GI because I didn't want to be a hospitalist. I wanted to focus on the gut health, the microbiome, nutrition, and trying to optimize somebody's health that way. And then I found out kind of what being a GI doc was all about. And it was more chronic disease management where you really didn't seem to help people in the conventional way that we were taught. And I got connected with a functional medicine doctor in the west side of Michigan where I did my residency. And the rest is history. I've been practicing like functional medicine ever since. And I try to combine the best of my knowledge of what we've learned in medical school and residency from a pharmacological approach with a lifestyle and holistic approach. So I'm always trying to do that on a day-to-day basis, taking care of people.
Okay, perfect. So we have a lot of similarities now, but you kind of started with that early on. So what do you do? So right now, do you have a practice? Like, what do you do right now? What does a
Yeah,
day in the life of Dr. Russell look like?
yeah. So one of my first jobs that I took, I got 50 state licenses and jumped into the telemedicine space because COVID was happening and it was telemedicine was starting to grow, and that kind of almost fell into my lap. And ever since then, I've been practicing. Well, I was doing a little bit of direct primary care mixed with telemedicine, and now I'm doing telemedicine for as a 1099 contractor, trying to open up my own kind of independent space. But I've worked for several different companies over the years where, I'll do a little bit of functional medicine and do a little synchronous, asynchronous work, and now trying to come up with more leadership roles to try and spread this type of medicine to more people and empowering other physicians that might be on the fence to get them on board as well.
Okay. So I guess whenever you see patients, what is your maybe focus, or what do you, how do you start when a person first sees you? What are you just asking them questions? Are you letting them talk to you? Do you have like the same game plan for everyone? What does functional medicine look like to you?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And so a typical call for me when I'm like talking to somebody on a Zoom call is I get a half hour with them, which first off is more time than they've had with a doctor in their entire life. And I just start with like introducing myself, kind of telling like a very short story of like kind of who I am. And then I say, hey, we have a half hour here. The first 15 minutes, I'm not going to talk about your labs because that's basically what we're doing. We're running a giant panel of labs and we're trying to optimize these labs. But the first 15 minutes, I will say my intro and then I ask the person why. And I leave it very, very open-ended. Like, why do you care about this? Before we even get into it, why do you even care? And I try to not say anything for at least 5 to 7 minutes. And I just kind of nod my head. And usually they just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking to the point where the questions that I would have asked have already been answered.
And so you're trying to get from them like why they want to get healthy or why they've reached out to you, like kind
Yeah.
of what is their
Yeah.
purpose in their health journey? Yeah.
Yeah. Because most of the people that are coming through our doors are the ones that are kind of fed up with the medical system, or they've been told they need a certain medication, or been told they need a statin, or told they need all these things where they may or may not need them, but they want a different perspective. And the word average to them is like this curse word. Like, life should not be about just coasting through and getting average everything. It should be optimized. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I'm curious as to your opinion, but I think that most doctors feel that way because that's what we're taught in school, right? You kind of
Yeah.
just get people in this box of what's normal. and then you kick them out the door, right? So like they train us like that from the very beginning, right? As soon as you start doing your residency, it's like, hey, go see this patient. If they're breathing, if their pulse ox is above 92, then kick them
Yeah.
out the door. It's like, and feelings don't really matter. And it's not like you said, you let people talk for 5 to 7 minutes. So I remember learning in med school, like the very beginning of med school, that if you'll just let a patient talk for 1 to 3 minutes, they feel like it's 15, but
Yep.
they're like, don't let them talk longer than 3 minutes. You have other things to do.
Yes.
Uh, which is, it's sad, but it's true. Just letting someone kind of, and if you think about it, talking for 5 to 7 minutes without being interrupted, I bet most people don't do that all day long, right? Ever.
Yeah.
Think about it when you're in a conversation. Unless you see a therapist, I see my therapist every Thursday. Shout out to Jan. She's amazing, but she lets me talk as long as I want to. Unless you're actively going to therapy, though, I mean, most people probably don't just talk for 7 minutes without being interrupted.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what healing is all about, when you're allowing somebody to actually like tell their story. And another thing I tell them is that you're in charge of your health, right? I'm here to kind of point you in the right direction and to give you the pros and the cons of things. But after this call, it's on you. Like, this is not my life, it's yours. So let's talk about what matters to you. It matters to me in the sense that I want to, like, of course, lower your risk of heart disease and Alzheimer's disease and cancer. Of course, I want to do that. But at the end of the day, you got to do the hard work. And I want to get you there. But let's find like what motivates you to get there.
Yeah, that's so true. I had this conversation with 10 women today, right? It's like, I love that. It's so true. It's, we can guide you, we can give you the education, we can, lead you to water, but we can't make you drink. And so,
Yes.
what is your motivation? What is your why? What's
Mhm.
standing in the way? What are your excuses? And then let's give you tools to make those better. And so, I think a lot of people just get frustrated, right? Because they go to 7 doctors and all the doctors say they're normal and they don't feel normal, and they just want some sort of guidance or just some sort of validation, right? That like, so it is normal. I was talking to a guy today who's 46 and he's having some anxiety and some panic issues, and his testosterone's really low. And he's like, I've never had issues like this. And the doctor just wants to give me an SSRI, and that's not what I want. And, I just said to him, I said, this is actually very normal. You're 46 years old. Your testosterone is 230. I see this every day. And I thought he was going to cry. He was like, you're serious? This is normal? And I said, yes, this is a completely normal side effect of low testosterone, but we can work on fixing it. And I think people just want that validation of like, hey, I'm not crazy. I don't need an SSRI. What I'm feeling is actually valid. And then, he and I talked about ways to work through that. And I think that is what people want. And unfortunately, healthcare has become so rushed that we don't think outside and we don't use our brains. Like doctors are some of the providers, are some of the smartest people, in the world. And it's like, we just are in this like go, 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 go. And instead of actually stopping and listening to people and thinking about how everything works together, we just try to put everyone in a box, give them something to shut them up and move them out the door. And that's not what medicine was supposed to be, right? Like it's not.
Right. And the other big thing that I want to add to that is like, you're right. We are like, we've always like classically got the highest test scores. We've worked our butts off to take the MCATs and get into medical school and do the volunteering and do all the extra hours that we needed to do. Right. And then we graduate, go to residency, go on our own. And now we're like, hey, follow the protocol. It's like, what? The
It's
protocol, it can work for some people, but it's not going to work for everybody. And you got to start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, it's like we dehumanized medicine. That's what I tell myself. Like,
Yep.
I worked for a big hospital system for a while, and it's like you dehumanized the process, right? Like there's a human sitting there that has feelings and emotions and symptoms. And then you have to actually think and, think outside the box and listen to them and put it all together, kind of like a detective. Like, I tell my husband, I play chess all day long. Like I'm trying to like, it is mentally kind of hard when you actually listen to people and try to figure out like what's wrong with them. But that's why we went to school. That's why we have the training. And the more I remind myself of that every day, like these are people, this is, you shouldn't dehumanize what you're doing. It's just, it makes it better. It makes it, it takes longer. It's harder. You're going to have people that don't feel well, but then you're going to have people that feel great afterwards. And so I don't know where we got off in medicine, doing the wrong thing or just running people through there and dehumanizing it. But if we could just get back to, to that, I think that healthcare would be a lot different.
Yeah, the EMR system. I mean, there's so many different things that, insurance companies not paying for services. There's so many reasons why it is dehumanized, and we have become medical robots that are just kind of following in line with what we're told to do and what insurance companies tell us to do. And I've been thankful enough to not have to work with insurance companies. Obviously, people pay cash to see me, but at the end of the visit, I hope to give them an experience that they never had before. And to be honest, for me, it's pretty simple. It's just just listen to these people, because they'll tell you everything they need and everything they want. And by the time you're done kind of diagnosing them, it's right there in front of you. So some obviously are more complicated than others, but a lot of them are just very simple things that we switch around, and you don't have to create a new life. You just need to mix and match a few different things, and you can get so much healthier.
Yeah, and I think we also need to keep in mind as providers that like more medications and adding things to the puzzle doesn't necessarily make it better, right? So like medicating symptoms, like we need to we need to go back to the root cause of like what is causing this, and then let's fix this. Because I saw a lady today who I haven't seen her for a while, but she is having serious memory issues, and I'm looking through her meds and I'm like, you're taking gabapentin and you're taking diazepam and you're taking, well, yeah, I went to my primary care doctor and told them I was having memory issues, and they told me I was depressed and I was going through menopause, and and I'm like, all these things cause memory issues. Like, so it just, we're just so quick as providers to just like throw a pill at a symptom. And there's so many things that play into that.
Yes.
And when we really need to be talking to somebody about, okay, her general complaint from the beginning was that she was tired and she was having brain fog. I mean, she's going through menopause, and so let's talk about sleep, and let's talk about exercise, and let's talk about, let's not throw gabapentin, diazepam, and what else was she on? Something else for fluoxetine. Like, I mean, just all those
Yeah.
things are not going to make you feel better.
The SSRI, throwing SSRIs at menopause never made sense to me. And once I really started to dive into hormones, I'm like, that is so wrong. Like, you are just not fixing the problem at all. And then the person is blaming themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now something is wrong with me. That's what they're saying to themselves. And it's like, because we did what we were supposed to do, that should have fixed them, right? Because that's what we're told. And that's tough for those people.
It's crazy to think, okay, if somebody is going through menopause, like, right, one of the things people complain about is their sleep and like their mood, their night sweats, right? So
Sure.
let's talk about that. What is the number one cause that women get night sweats and don't sleep well? It's alcohol. How many women drink alcohol every night, right? So that's the first question I ask women is like, okay, how many glasses of wine? I don't even say do you. It's more like how many glasses of wine or how many cocktails do you have at night? Most people then say 1, 2. A lady told me yesterday 3. And it's like, okay, you're having 3 glasses of wine every night, but you're mad that you're gaining weight and you're not sleeping and you're having hot flashes. Well, let's talk about how alcohol, metabolizes. And I'm just, because nobody's ever told them this, right? So alcohol metabolizes while you're sleeping. It can cause you to be hot. It affects your sleep. You don't get into good REM sleep. And guess what? It actually has a lot of calories. A lot of, so it's just like, let's, instead of throwing an SSRI at somebody, and then the question is, okay, well, why are you having 3 drinks at night, right? Is it because you're stressed? Is it because you like how it tastes? Is it because that's just what and if it's because you're stressed, then how do we replace that with something else? How do we go for a walk? And so just, asking questions, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but just asking questions helps a lot, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something, but that's hard for people to take away their alcohol. Not that I'm trying to pull that alcohol away from people, but I want to say 75% of my patients, I'm having the alcohol conversation with them because it's just this cultural, thing that's totally normal and everybody drinks and it's not a problem because as long as you're over 21, it's totally legal and it's only if it's a few here and there, it's not a problem. And then you add it up. It's like you realize you drink like 20 drinks in a week or like 15 drinks in a week. And anytime anybody says like, "Oh, I have two," you have four. Like in my head, like I'm doubling it immediately.
yeah.
Because anybody who's ever poured a drink, if you really did like your standard like 1 ounce tequila shot or 8 ounce beer, 12 ounces, whatever it is, it's like, oh no, you're not even close to that.
Yeah, I think they taught us in med school you at least double, if not triple, what patients tell you when they drink,
Oh, yeah.
right? Isn't that what they taught you? Like, I think you double for women and triple for men is what they taught
That's
me.
totally fair. You're right most of the time.
Yeah. Okay, so then so like, how do you talk to your patients as far as like, I know you talked about your pillars, like sleep and exercise. And do you have like something that you tell all your patients? Like, or is there like certain tips that you give them? Is there certain exercise tips? Are there certain sleep tips? Like, what are your thoughts on all those things? Because I say the same things too. And sometimes people look at you like you're crazy, right? Like sleep 8 hours, really? Like who has time to sleep 8 hours?
Yeah.
So what is your
Yeah,
stance
and
on that?
they're all intertwined. So my like top five is going to be nutrition. What's the fuel that's actually going into your body? How are you exercising? What types of exercising are you doing? How are you getting your heart rate up? How are you sleeping at night? What is your stress like? And not so much what are your stressors, but how do you react to those stressors? And then lastly is sexual health. And I always leave sexual health at my final one because usually if the first four are out of whack, the fifth one never is firing on all cylinders. So I always generally start with diet and exercise, as cliche as that is. But it's your fuel. And if you're putting the wrong fuel in your vehicle, it's not going to go far. And I tell people, especially with my guys, because I do a lot of testosterone consults, I kind of pump up guys a little bit. I'm like, hey, man, you are a diesel truck. What happens if you pour ethanol into your diesel truck? It doesn't go very far, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. That would, and that, it like just clicks with them. And I'm like, that bagel you have in the morning, that's the wrong fuel, right?
Mhm.
That oatmeal that everybody says is super healthy for you is actually like stripping your energy away.
You're not even getting out of the driveway with oatmeal or
Oh
cereal or a
God,
bagel.
jeez. But these
Yeah.
people, and I just empower them. Like I keep it very simple because health should not be complicated. We make it very complicated, but being healthy and living healthy should not be very complicated. So especially when it comes to my nutrition advice, don't drink your calories. Like number one, just drink water out of glass. That's very important. If you drink coffee, drink it black. Don't add any sweeteners. Don't add anything to your drink. I'm even like smoothies, especially for somebody with insulin resistance or any diabetes, anything, pre-diabetes to diabetes. I'm just like, hey, chew your food, eat your food. There's no way you would consume an 8 ounce, 12 ounce, 16 ounce, whatever size smoothie you're having. If you were to sit down and chew that, you would have never finished it. Okay. So try not to drink your calories if your goal is to lose weight. If you're a marathon runner, if you just got done with an exercise, if you're already super fit, you can probably tolerate those things, but the majority of people cannot. So I try not to have people drink their calories as a general rule of thumb. And then if you can't tell me what you're eating, that's a problem. Right? You should be eating whole foods. You should be able to look at your food and tell me every single ingredient that's in it. And I'm a big stickler on that, on whole foods. I love meat. I love eggs. I love fish. I love veggies, and I love fruit, and probably in that order. Okay. I'm surprised you haven't heard them yet. They're probably sleeping at this point, but I've got like 50 some chickens around circling around my property right now. And it's part of my lifestyle. I raise them for meat. I raise them for eggs. And I do a lot of hunting in the fall and in the spring. And I truly enjoy reaping what I sow. So, you just gotta eat natural foods, and if you just don't know what you're eating, you got a big time problem.
Okay, so I have two questions. So I like that. So you're not a protein shake person then, not a smoothie person.
So protein shakes are my only exception, but still, I know 100% of the ingredients in my protein shake.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
me too.
it's whey protein, period, and there's nothing else in it. So
Okay, so
that's like the only exception.
you're making me feel bad there for a second because I definitely have a protein shake every morning after I work out. So I was like, oh, but I know
Yeah.
what's in it. It has almond milk, water, PB Fit, a little bit of a banana. I do vegan protein. It's made out of pea powder, but pea
Mhm.
powder and turmeric. I put my collagen in there and I put my creatine in there and I put some glutamine for my gut and
Sure,
ice.
sure.
That's it.
All right, so I
But
gotta pick. I gotta pick on you for a second. What?
okay.
Why almond milk? What do you think is healthy about almond milk?
Well, I don't do dairy at all. Not very like I don't do any sort of dairy bothers me. And so I just put a little bit of almond milk in there because I kind of like the flavor of milk.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll do oat milk, I'll do soy milk. I just dairy has always, even whenever I was a kid, just kind of upset my stomach. So I don't do milk. But I do I don't know if you follow the Food Babe, but I do the almond milk that is just almond milk and salt. Or sorry, almond water and salt. That's it. So there's not a bunch of crap in it. So I don't do the
Okay.
silk. There's 3 almond milks that are actually just almonds, water, and salt. That is it.
Oh,
Organic almonds, water, and salt. And so
that's fair.
that's the one I use. It's called Malk, MALK. But that is all the ingredients: almonds, filtered water, and salt.
See, that's fair. You can tell me every ingredient that's in your drink. Like if you grab something off the shelf like silk, I'll pick on silk for example.
No, I hate silk. Yeah, way too much
No,
stuff.
I
Has
do.
gum.
There's all these emulsifiers in it and chemicals, and it's basically a science experiment gone wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
you have a good
so
point.
that I drink milk, and then my protein powder that I really like is called Earth Chimp, and it has pea protein, it has some turmeric, some ginger, but I mean everything on the ingredient list, I know what it is. And
Yeah,
so some people don't like it. Whey actually bothers my stomach. I've tried whey. I don't. I think maybe because it's got a milk base. I guess there's a cross contamination with milk, but it
sure.
makes me very bloated.
Yeah,
And I know some women that say that. So and I just can't get enough protein in during the day. Sometimes on the weekend I can, but when I'm working, I just can't sit down and like eat enough to get enough protein because I try to eat 130 to 150 grams of protein a day. Like
right.
protein is king to me, fiber's queen, and then I kind of follow. I'm like you. I'm a protein person, and then I love vegetables. I love fiber. I love fruit. I don't do dairy because it upsets my stomach. Every now and then I'll have some Greek yogurt that is lactose free. You can get like A2 casein lactose free Greek
Yeah,
yogurt, but so that's why I do my protein shakes in the morning too, because I know you're supposed to have protein after you work out, and because I'm trying to build muscle, and I
sure.
just can't eat enough. Like I try to eat 50 grams, 40 to 50 grams of protein with my first meal and my last meal, and
Mhm.
so I have my little shake because it has like 25 grams, and then I have some eggs. I love eggs. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I love
Um,
it.
and I'm with you on the whole food thing. So that's one thing I think I've changed over the last 2 years in my life that has made a huge difference is, I used to be very like convenience oriented. So like a lot of protein bars and a lot of things that come packaged and they said they were organic. And so I was just like, okay, great. But then when I actually started looking at the labels, I'm like, what in the hell is that? Like, what is that? I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't know what that is. And so I have been very conscientious the last 2 years of like, if I don't know what is in something, I don't put it in my mouth. And I also play this game with myself every day. It's kind of fun. I try to eat 30 different foods every single day for like gut health.
well,
Yeah, and I accomplish it most of the time. If you try, then you do. And so
yeah.
so like with my shake, I have almonds in there, so
Mhm.
that counts. There's PB Fit, so that counts for peanut butter. There's pea protein, so it has pea, it has turmeric, it has garlic, and then I put a banana in it. and I have creatine, which I don't count, and glutamine. But I mean, there's 6 ingredients right there just in a
Sure.
protein shake. And so I try to just count like all the whole foods that I have every day. I have blueberries every day and raspberries and apples and bananas and chia seeds, you know. But if you do that and you actually eat 30 whole foods every day, then you don't want to eat a bunch of crap because you're full. That's kind of a trick that I've taught myself, right? Like
Yeah.
when you eat really good whole foods, then you don't want to eat chocolate and drink wine and eat all the bad things. So
Sure.
I like that whole food, like you said, like if it's, I try to eat whole foods and I do too. And I actually eat a lot of food, a lot more food than I used to eat. It's kind of shocking because I was kind of tracking my macros for a little while and trying to do that. And I 100% agree with what you say. The more task you give someone with nutrition, the more difficult it is. So like I had a trainer and a nutritionist that was like, you got to eat this many macros and you have to eat, you know, this. And I was just like, it's hard, you know? And
Yeah.
so now I do more of what I call intuitive eating, where it's like when I'm hungry, I eat. I try to focus on protein. I know I want to try to do 130 grams a day. I eat
Mhm.
whole foods and that's it. Like I eat till
Yeah.
I'm full and it's interesting, you know?
Yeah. And you
It
mentioned
works.
like
It works.
you're eating more now than you were 2 years ago, right?
Oh,
And
I eat a lot of food.
but what's changed, right? It sounds like your strength training regimen has changed too, right?
I definitely do a lot more strength training as I've gotten older. So I'm in my late 30s, about to be 40. And yes, I've noticed that whenever I was younger, I did a lot more cardio. I didn't have to do as much weight training. And then
Mhm.
I started around 35 noticing that my muscle was going away. And I didn't like that because when you don't have muscles, women, you don't look as pretty. You just don't. It's just things start moving and falling. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
That's just the way.
Yeah. So I changed. So I don't really do cardio anymore. I walk. I like to go outside and walk in the morning. I try to walk at lunchtime. I walk when I get home with my dog. Like I try to move, but
Yeah.
I don't run on treadmills for 5 miles like I used to. I don't do 30-minute stair climbing. You know, I do weight training.
Yeah. I'm
So,
pretty similar. I would say probably 70-30 for me weight training. And that's another thing that when it comes to diet and exercise, the exercise component, I'm very heavy on strength training. I think it's
yeah.
the best thing for longevity. I think it's the best thing for just feeling uh, you, like yourself. The best of you comes out when you're consistently in the gym doing strength training. And especially for guys and the testosterone, the response that you get from a heavy lift, it's unmatched compared to most other biohack things that you can do. Like nothing will trump a powerful workout in the gym where you worked your ass off. And that's where I'm always like, hey, do the strength training component, but you better be giving it your all. Like you're not kidding anybody by just showing up to the gym. I would say showing up is probably the hardest part. Like waking up, getting out of bed, and actually going into the gym is the hardest part of working out. But when you're there, take advantage of it. And I'm all about like hire a personal trainer for a little bit. Find out how to do these things that you've never probably done unless you were on like the high school football team, like doing a deadlift and a squat and chest
Yeah.
press, overhead press. Most guys don't know how to do that, and then they get on there and they think they look stupid or they hurt themselves, and then it sets them back. So got to go all out and give it your all when you are exercising. But very much strength training is my first and foremost, just like protein is with nutrition, strength training with exercise. And I do still think having a cardio component is very important. Having a high VO2 max is very, very important for longevity. But I don't enjoy running at all. Like it's really hard to like, hey, let's go for a run. I'm like, that doesn't sound good. Or treadmill is like the worst. I want to be outside running around. I'm a big mountain biker. Like that is my go-to, and I love it. And it's something I crave, and I don't even realize that I'm exercising because I just feel this incredible rush while I'm doing it. So I always encourage people to find something that you like to do that you're moving. And like, where did pickleball come from? But it's like the best thing that's ever happened to like middle aged people because it's a smaller cohort. They're still moving. They're sweating. They're social. I can't see a negative in it other than like the annoyance of everybody talking about it.
Well, and people break their hips and their legs and
Yeah,
but
yeah.
injuries.
It's gonna
But
be
no,
that.
I agree. Pickleball is interesting. And yeah, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. I do minimal cardio, but I just don't. I would rather be outside walking. And then I feel like I get a lot of my cardio too from lifting. Like I try to lift pretty heavy. And so if you're really lifting hard, like legs, and I do some hit type lifting, then you get
Mhm.
some cardio from that too. But if you have weight to
Right.
lose, I will preface this. Like if you are trying to lose weight, then you should 100% be doing cardio for sure. And like if I ever want to try to lean out, then yes, I do cardio. But right now I'm just trying to like build muscle, maintain muscle. And so I'm pretty lean at this point. So I mean, that's why it's not a big thing for me. But in patients, I do tell them, yes, it's good for you when you're trying to get rid of some of that extra body fat.
Absolutely.
Is that fair? Okay. So
That's fair.
I like those tips. So no drinking your calories of any sort. I think that's a good tip. I like the exercise tip. What are your sleep tips since that's number 3? Like what do you tell people as far as do you have a certain amount of time that you tell them to sleep? Do they need to be in bed by a certain time? Do you believe in like cortisol spiking and growth hormone spiking at 2 a.m.? Is it okay if I stay on my phone, Dr. Russell, until 2 a.m., but then I go to bed at 2:30 and I wake up at 10? Like what are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
As long as you're getting 8 hours, I don't care what you're doing. I'm kidding. Yeah, that's a total joke.
Okay.
No, you need to have a consistent schedule. I think consistency is the first thing. And even when it comes to weekends, like if your time to go to bed is 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, mine is probably 10:30, 10:30 to 6:30, 7:30, somewhere around there, give or take. But consistency is key, and you really should be, as a general rule of thumb. That's like saying you need to drink 8-ounce glasses of water every day, right? I'm 215 pounds. I'm going to take a lot more water than my wife who weighs 120 pounds, right? That's just like a blanket statement. So you got to take it for, that particular person. And most people will tell you like, hey, I do really well when I get 7 hours of sleep. Whereas like the next day I'll say I do really good when I get 8 hours of sleep. You oversleeping can be a problem just as much as undersleeping because you're going to be lazy the next day or lethargic and you're just not going to have the energy. But consistency is always my start. Um, Big fan of keeping the room cold if you can. Mid 60s is an ideal temperature to be sleeping at. You do not want it hot. If you get it hot, your heart rate's going to be higher. You're going to get more irritated in bed. You want that heart rate to be very, very low. So that's the best way.
Why? Why is that?
That's the best way you can recover. And that recovery piece is when you're going to be spiking your growth hormone in your deep sleep, in your REM sleep. If you are not getting that heart rate low enough, and everybody who's ever worn one of these sleep trackers knows this is the case when you drink alcohol, you are not tapping into these deep and REM sleep cycles, which are the most important part of recovery. And most people are doing it right Monday through Friday, or I should say Monday through Thursday, Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday night and Saturday night is just a complete throw it all out the window. You never recover, and you're just constantly like circling the drain. So, man, I could talk for an hour about like what I would do for somebody with optimizing sleep, but I will say consistency, cold temperature, you know, lights off. Absolutely, your phone is like this thing is my like worst enemy, like or can be everybody's worst enemy in the bedroom, and it needs to go on airplane mode. It needs to be shut down, flipped over, whatever you got to do. Do not look at that phone. So,
I would agree. About a year and a half ago, I made a rule that I would not be on my phone in my bedroom. And so I kind of shut it down before I go to my bedroom and then, make sure my alarm is on. And then under no circumstances do I get on my phone ever in my bedroom. And so, your bed is for sleeping. That's it. We don't watch TV. And it's helped a ton. So like I will tell you that consistency is good too, but I have a pretty good bedtime routine. Like, hey, I start getting ready at a certain time. I'm usually in bed by a certain time. I plug my phone in, and when my head hits the pillow, I mean, I'm usually out in 2 to 3 minutes. And then I generally wake up around the same time every day with or without an alarm. Doesn't matter if it's Saturday, Sunday. It doesn't matter if I travel. I travel to the West Coast a lot, and my husband and I were just there recently, and I wake up at 4:30 there instead of 6:30 here. I mean, it's like my body just knows. But I go to bed at 8 o'clock there. I don't care. I have dinner at 4:30 and I go to bed at 8 because I stay on Cassie's time. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
I
you're
don't
very
care.
disciplined if you're still able to do that.
My husband is on the same page as me because we just feel better. Like, we used to try
Yeah.
to fight it. We used to try to stay up late with our friends and go to dinner. And, we used to drink a lot more than we did. And, I just told him, when you drink alcohol, it heats, your body has to detoxify that. So your body heats up while it's doing that, I think, because I would wake up, I'm not kidding you, at like 2 a.m. with just hot flashes, like one glass of wine. I'm having a hot flash at 2 a.m., like out of the covers. And it's not worth it. Like, I'm just like, no, because your body's trying to get rid of all those toxins. Right. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I completely agree. It's helped a lot. That's about the time I decided I'm going to eat whole nutritious food. I'm not going to be on my phone, and I'm going to, just go to sleep at a certain time. And I think it helps a lot. So,
Oh yeah, I trust me. I have the conversation with alcohol multiple times a day with multiple different patients,
oh,
and I just can't. Other than like the social aspect of drinking, I would encourage you to like come up with a reason why alcohol is like good for you.
mhm.
Like, all right, so it lowers your stress. Well, there's better ways to lower your stress that aren't going to affect your sleep in a negative way.
I think a lot of women will tell you they think it helps their stress, but then they also just like it. Like, it's soothing to them, which I sort of understand because it was to me too. They just liked the way it tastes and it was soothing to them. But,
Sure.
I tell people there's lots of things you can drink. So this is kind of sad, but um, now I enjoy having like a good glass of tea or a good glass of like decaf coffee after dinner.
Yeah.
There's lots of, this past weekend, my husband and I were traveling, and we went, I'm not kidding you, we had a dinner reservation at 4:30. We were the first people in the restaurant. The waiter was kind of like, looking at us funny because we're younger. We left the restaurant by 6, which Oklahoma time is like 8. So my body was like, that's late. And
Yeah.
then we literally walked around, and we found a like coffee bar, and we got really nice, decaf coffees and a tea. And like, that was my jam instead of like alcohol and dessert. And I was happy. And then
Yeah.
we were in bed by 8. We were in bed by 8:30. I was exhausted because it was really like 10:30. But I mean, I felt great the next day.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to that. Like I'm in my early 30s, but surrounding yourself around people that are like-minded is key. Peer pressure sucks when everybody wants to stay up and everybody wants to party, and it's not good for you and you don't want to do it. I've had to make a lot of like hard decisions on like friendships and relationships that I wanted to get away from because of that aspect. So,
Yeah, because you're going to be the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
mhm,
And so, you have to, and it's harder. You're younger than I am. So I would say in my younger 30s, it was harder because you are more worried about what people think
sure.
and, keeping everyone happy. And I don't know, as you get older, it becomes really easy. Like, I just really don't give a damn. I just,
Yeah. No,
sorry, have fun.
I
Like,
feel
I would love to have dinner with you, but 8:30 is not going to work for me. It,
yeah,
you know, I'm happy to have brunch with you. I'm happy to have 4:30 dinner with you, maybe
yeah,
even 5, but
sure, sure. It's not that I don't want to hang out with you. I just don't want to partake in this, the timing or the what you're doing.
yeah.
So
And the alcohol thing, if you're really, first of all, if you have a friend that's peer pressuring you to drinking like that, you probably need a new friend. But
yeah,
if it's a social thing and you're really that worried about it, like what I've done in the past and what I do still sometimes is I'll just order like soda water and lime, and nobody knows you don't have vodka in there. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. I've done
drink
that.
your soda water and lime and like roll on. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. It's your body, it's your health.
no,
Um, and I do understand that though, because my husband and I used to drink a lot more than we do. And I get that whole like not wanting to get rid of it. It's the way that you relax, it's the way that you cope. But I promise if you stop doing it for like a week, you'll just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so, it just, you waste so much time too. The next day you don't feel good. Your head hurts. I mean, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, every day I try to like, the older I get, and especially like, I just got married. Well, not just got married, but we just got married, had our first child. Like I've had a lot of life things that have happened to me in the last couple of years that have been just complete game changers. And it's really made me question, like, why do I do this? Like, what am I here on this earth for? What do I like wake up every day and work for? And if you're not to your working at your potential, meaning you got drunk the night before and you're just that next day is a complete wash, you can't get that day back. And I've got so many things that I want to do and things that I want to accomplish. And, I want to be a great father and a great husband. And that's just not I'm not at my best when I'm sluggish and when I'm just cranky like that.
Yeah.
So, like, you
So
gotta,
are those your whys? You want to be a good dad. You want to be a good father. What are your other whys? Have you figured it out?
yeah, I think those are definitely my whys. And those have been, like I said, more recent in my life, but I have become very passionate with, farming. I really enjoy farming, regenerative agriculture, and I want to combine, my faith, Christianity, with farming and living a healthy lifestyle.
Where do you live? In Michigan?
Yes, I live in Michigan, but my wife and I are exploring other options that are going to allow us to live that lifestyle a little bit more days throughout the year because it gets
Okay.
pretty cold up here.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I want to come visit. I grew up in a small town, where there's lots of farms, and sometimes I miss it. To be honest with you, there's something to be said with like nature and just walking outside, and so that yeah, I would love
Oh
to.
yeah,
I would love to come visit and see your chickens and have some eggs. My dad has a massive garden. He eats farm fresh eggs. He
yeah,
loves that stuff. Digging in the dirt all
yep.
Saturday and Sunday, picking stuff. And I remember even as a kid, he would make us go out there and pick tomatoes. And I mean, he just was so happy, like
Mhm.
loved it.
Yeah,
I kind of hated it because he planted like 100 cherry tomato. You know what a cherry tomato plant is, right?
yeah,
I'm not kidding you. That man would plant 50 of them and then he'd be like, get out there and pick all those cherry tomatoes. And I
yeah.
was like,
Each
ah.
plant grows 50 too. So, and
So I
cheers.
do love it when I was a kid all the time, but
Yeah,
no, but I do think there's something to be said for being outside and doing something awesome like that.
yeah,
So
and that's my passion. Like, honestly, I'm not wearing any shoes. I'm always bare feet. My wife is constantly telling me I don't wash my feet enough, and I'm walking in the house with chicken poop on my feet, and she thinks it's gross. And I probably need to do a better job at cleaning my feet. But I just love being barefoot. I love, like, honestly just being outside, and it's just where I feel most at peace. And that's where I want to empower other people to live this lifestyle too, because you're constantly moving. The amount of strength training I'm doing passively by lifting up 50-pound chicken bags of corn feed and on both arms and walking them, out to the coop. And there's a lot of labor involved in it. And I think movement and having muscle mass is the key to aging for most people, along with
yeah,
the other things that we talked about.
for sure. Okay, so that's your purpose. Yeah. And when somebody finds their purpose, it just makes everything in life better, right? When you know what your purpose is, what you were put on this earth to do, and you actually are fulfilling that, then mentally you feel better and you're pouring into other people. And so that's the point. And I think a lot of my purpose, what I've decided over the last couple of years, is just to help educate people in providers, because I think about the world as, I see some people, and you do too, that are really sick and they don't feel well, right? So I have the privilege, I guess you would say, of seeing people sometimes at their worst. And the thing that I think about is like, man, if I can just get you 10% better, just 10% better, think of the 10, that's 10% more you can give to the world of whatever your purpose is. And if every single person on this planet could give the world 10% more, think of the world we would live in, and that just like lights me up and puts me on fire, and that's easy. Like everyone should be able to get 10% better, easy,
Right.
with basic education, right?
Yep.
Just some of the things we're talking about. If they really wanted to, you can get 10% better. And so if, 7 billion people got 10% better, do that math. Like that's scary, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes the world, after COVID, it's dicey. Sometimes I worry about it as a society. And I think a lot of it is just we're stressed and we don't feel well, and we, that comes out in people. And so just getting them to refine their purpose and to feel better, I think would change a lot of things about this world.
Amen. I love that. And purpose too is something that like it's growing, it's shifting, and you're evolving. I'm not the same person that I was in my 20s. My purpose in my 20s is much different than my purpose in my 30s, and there's definitely some cores that aren't going to go away, but you grow and you mature, and you just try to do what's best and what makes you feel like you're doing something good for those people that you come into contact with, and getting them 10% better, and 20 and 30 and whatever you can do.
Yeah, ideally you make them 100% better, right? But that's what I tell
Sure.
people, like, let's just start with 10%, because
Yeah.
when you start with little goals and keep inching forward, it's a lot easier than, looking down a football field, right? It's a lot easier to go 10 yards than it is 100.
Yeah,
And so,
baby
and once
steps.
you get that momentum, it's a little bit easier.
Yes, baby steps, right? So that's what it's all.
So we talked about nutrition, we talked about exercise, we talked about sleep. So stress and your reaction to stress. What is like one of your tips, or a few of your tips you talk to people about that? Really high stress, not sleeping, burning the candle at both ends. What do we do, Dr. Russ?
Yeah, I think first off, you got to be sleeping well, right? If you're not sleeping well, you are just going to be more stressed. Some of these diagnoses of chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, if you can get those people to sleep better, a lot of their symptoms go away. And I mean, you can just base it off like a long weekend. You catch a red eye and then you had something else the next day. You are stressed that next day. Your body hurts. And if that's you on an everyday basis, you're not going to be able to function. So you got to be able to sleep. That is first and foremost when it comes to stress. Um, Most of the things in this life right now we cannot avoid, right? We are constantly worried about finances. How much things cost in this world is outrageous right now. A lot of times we don't have control of our jobs, relationships. These are a lot of times can be stressors on us. And that's why I said it's all about how you cope with the stress. Yes, you can change that relationship, or yes, you can get a new job, but like that's a more of a long-term plan. The short-term plan is you need to be solid, and you need to be not swayed with the wind every situation that confronts you. So learning how to cope with those strategies is key. I think therapy is not meant for the weak, it's meant for the strong. um, I personally have never like seen a therapist, but like every time I hear somebody saying that, I'm like, there's no shame in that whatsoever. Like those are actually the strong ones. And the marriages that are seeing therapists on a monthly basis just to make sure they stay strong is important. And that's another way to deal with stress. Getting in a fight with your husband or wife or significant other, that's a huge stress. And that next day that's all you're thinking about, even when you're supposed to be doing your job, and now you're not doing anything right. So I think therapy is great. I think getting sleep is great, and then finding a way to relieve that stress. And that's why I have a 100-pound heavy bag that I love to punch. I love boxing. That's like one of my things I love to do. Like mountain biking is a huge stress reliever for me. Exercise is a huge stress reliever for me. My sauna, I crank that sucker up as hot as I can possibly get it, and I stay in as long as I possibly can, because that's stressful. And what I tell people is that if you control your stress, you are much more likely to be in control when you cannot control your stressors. So you control the stress. You put the stress on you.
So do you do any sort of breathing techniques? Are you like a meditator, yoga type person, or are you just a sweat it out in the sauna and ride your bike and punch things type of person?
Uh,
That's not a wrong answer. I'm just curious.
yeah, I have tried to do the breath work. I find that personally it's not doesn't work for me. I've definitely had breathwork sessions from professionals that it's like, whoa, I went into a trance and that was the most unreal hallucinogenic trance I've ever been in, where it's amazing. But on a daily basis, I don't. I do pray a lot. There's constantly times where I will just close my eyes and pray in between like calls, or I pray for my patients a lot, and I find that to be very healing, for my patients and for me as well. So that's more of my meditation.
So that's kind of like therapy. You're talking to God instead of a therapist. So, okay. So I like that. I am a huge sauna proponent as well. How hot does your sauna get? I get mine to 90 degrees Celsius.
What's that in Fahrenheit?
I don't know. It just goes in Celsius. It's above 150. I know that. It's hot.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So I actually have two saunas. One came with the house that I moved into, so it's like a dry sauna in the basement, the glass door, and then I have a barrel sauna, which it's a wood fire, and I can get that sucker pretty hot. And some of these people I see, like Joe Rogan, gets his up to like 200 degrees and stuff. I don't know how they're doing that. I've got it up to like 185, and I am cooking. And
yeah.
I throw some water on there. It's like my ears are gonna bleed if I get this any hotter. So
My skin hurts whenever I'm in mine, but yeah, and to your point too, so I've tried a lot of breath work stuff. I've tried more of it recently. I've tried very hard to meditate. It's really hard for me to do too. My brain just doesn't work like that. I have tried, and I'm doing a little bit more of it recently now, because I do think it helps when you're really stressed and you can't control a situation. What you can control is your breath.
sure,
And so maybe you and I both will get better at that as we get older. I don't know. But but I do like the sweating aspect of it. I do like that a lot. And I don't know. I would encourage you though. I'm going to challenge you to
okay,
maybe find a therapist and just try it, because it's pretty cool. Especially when you're in your 30s, I think, because I did some therapy in my 20s. And then I don't know. I just feel like when you're in your younger 30s, you're really starting to like evolve as a person.
sure.
And I don't know. It's interesting. You'll learn a
So
lot about yourself.
where would somebody find a therapist? I think this is something, especially in this day and age, like with the online presence. I have a
Mhm.
hard time like pushing somebody in the right direction. So what do you do with your patients?
Well, I found someone that by word of mouth here, and she's amazing. But I think you can go to, I think it is the American psychology.org, and it'll be like find a therapist, and you can put your zip code in, and it will pull up therapists within your zip code, and you can see pictures of them, and it kind of tells you what they specialize in as well. So you can kind of see if you kind of feel like you mesh with that person. And I
Sure.
encourage patients to do that. And I tell them, give them 2 sessions. And if you feel like you don't mesh with that person, then find somebody else. But to be honest with you, I think with therapy, it's going to take a couple months. It's going to take 6 or 8 sessions before you really trust anyone, right? Like I didn't
Yes.
tell my therapist things about me for months. I'm just like,
Yeah.
whatever. She's judging me. But now she probably knows more about me than almost anyone in the world. Because I've seen her for 3 or 4 years. But it is, I mean, if you find the right one, I think it's really good for your soul. Mine challenges me, and she, holds me accountable for things, and she's good about telling me when I do things well, and she's good about giving me suggestions when I don't. But I think it's just a good sounding board too, right? Because sometimes, I want to complain about whatever it is, my job, my husband, and she listens, but then she's good about, well, have you thought about it from this perspective, or have you thought about it from that perspective, and she's taught me there are certain life decisions that I can't make. Like Jan tells me there are certain things I cannot make decisions on until I've at least slept and then talked to her about it, like large things.
Yeah.
Which are probably good things, right?
Yeah.
So she just kind of teaches you. And it's funny because I'll find myself thinking sometimes like, well, what would Jan say in this situation? Like it's good. So I don't know. I think it's good to have somebody that you kind of have that sounding board with and just talk to. Now praying is similar, but you don't really get somebody that says something back instantly. I mean, you might see things or get, signs but
Sure.
I would encourage you to maybe just think about it.
No, I think it's a very well-rounded approach. A little bit of everything is great, but it's nice to get those voices out of your head too. I think a lot of people, including myself, struggle with, you're not good enough, or you could be doing better, you could be doing more, or whatever that is, and to have a unbiased response is kind of nice.
And sometimes I just want to ask her questions. I'm like, hey, Jan, this happened, yada, yada, yada. What do you think? Because I think I know what is right, or I think I know, like what she's going to say, but sometimes she shocks me, and it's like sometimes I feel like your loved ones won't necessarily tell you the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, am I really being, but she will, she's, and so sometimes that's nice too, to be able to go to someone that's unbiased and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or this is, what's going on, what should I do? And it's just nice to have a different set of eyes, I guess, and somebody who isn't going to tell anyone either, right? So you can ask them whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, you can,
Sure.
that's good too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like, sometimes I don't want to ask my husband things, or I don't want to like, because I'm like, well, I don't know. You just get, like, what's he going to think, or what's he going to say, or is he going to think I'm being, snippy, or so that's nice.
Yeah, and I love her rule about don't make any big decisions before you've had a good night's sleep. And
Sometimes I can't make decisions until I've talked to her about it. She's like, there are large life decisions you cannot just make on a whim. Like you need to at least sleep, and then I need to hear about them before you just make the decision.
I think that's
fair.
So many people have a reflexive personality, and it's not always healthy.
Yeah. And I've definitely gotten better with that. Her and I were talking about that. I used to be very reflexive. And so just, and because I think people don't like to be uncomfortable. So when something's brought at you and it makes you uncomfortable, you just want to make a decision and move on. And sometimes that's not the best thing to do. You have to kind of sit with that discomfort and think about it. And so that's why her and I have that rule, because I've had some decisions like that come up and I've wanted to just make decisions. And so we have a rule, but I don't get to do that. And I have somebody who holds me accountable for that. And it's good.
I think that's great.
Okay, so we talked about all your pillars except for sexual health. So you've got me intrigued. So what does that look like with Dr. Russell? What are you talking to people about that?
Well, I think that's like the pinnacle. Like, I'm assuming you're in like a relationship that it's a healthy sex to have. That's what brings us together. That's what makes us humans. Right? We are mammals at the end of the day that crave sexual interaction and that oxytocin and the love that we get from that intimacy. And if you're not sleeping well, you're out of shape, you're overweight, you're stressed out, you are not going to be enjoying that, nor even wanting that. That's what I tell guys. I will say one of the most common things that I get from my guy patients is, Dr. Russ, I don't have a libido anymore. And they're 45, 50 years old. There is anatomically nothing wrong with them. Nothing. And they think that taking like Viagra and Cialis is going to just give them a libido, when I go, hey, that's actually not how that works. But it's all about those four things that we've chatted about before, and I'll always go back to, what are you eating? How are you sleeping? Is all you think about is work? When's the last time you've exercised? I had a guy, a story I really like to tell when it comes to, like, I talked to a lot of like high high income earners, a lot of higher ups in companies, a lot of people that are very driven, a lot of entrepreneurs, which are, I give them all the credit in the world. The one of this guy is a business owner, and he had a call with me. I see people on a 3-month basis. He goes, Russ, I have no libido. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm looking through his labs, and things look fine. There's nothing blaringly obvious that something's wrong with him. I say, hey, just keep trying these things. Keep trying these things. And we talked a lot about stress and how to mitigate that stress. He goes on vacation, and he didn't bring his phone. He only checked his phone once a day, or there was days that he didn't even have his phone. So he had no access to his text messages, no access to his emails, no access to social media. And he comes back and he just has this big smile on his face. I'm like, how was your vacation? He goes, Russ, I was having sex all the time. There's nothing wrong with me anymore. Right? And I'm like, why do you think that is? Because you're in this survival mode every single day of your life when it comes to stress that causes you to not eat the right foods, that causes you to be lazy. You can't sleep at night. You're just staring at the wall. That just blew everything out of the water, and you expect to be having something that is only activated when we're in a complete state of rest and relaxation. If you're in survival mode, the body does not want to have sex.
Right.
It's always going to prefer to survive before it prefers to reproduce. So that's what it always goes back to, those first 4, to get sexual health as good as it can be.
Yeah, because you would also be shocked at how many women in their 30s and 40s tell me every day, I like my husband, but I don't want to have sex with him. And I'm like, ever? And they're like, no, ever. And I'm like, are you sure you like him? And they're like, yes, I do. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, but these are women that have high insulin levels and high cortisol levels. And yeah. And so, yeah, it's true. And it is a very, sacred thing that we are supposed to share with another human. And it does make us feel, very connected. And so I would agree with that. And I think that's great that you talk to your patients about it. And, looking at their hormone levels sometimes helps them, realize that, hey, I have no testosterone, I have no estrogen, this may be part of the reason as well. But, looking at their nutrition, looking at their sleep, their exercise, and their stress, that makes total sense. When those things are off, then you're not going to feel well. And the story about the vacation, that makes total sense too, right? Like if you're somebody who hates your husband and or never has a libido and then goes on vacation and is having sex all the time, then there's your answer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's your answer right there. So, yeah, and I encourage, I'm very open about it. I try not to be like, okay, so let's talk about what we need to talk about, sex. No, let's be open and honest about it. We're all doing it. It's on our minds all the time. Don't be shy about these things. I throw it out there all the time. Men, women, it doesn't matter. You just gotta hang it out to dry.
It's an important part of life. And that's what I tell patients too, even in your 60s and your 70s and your 80s. I take care of a ton of older couples because I do a lot of hormone management. I have 80-year-olds who come to me together because they want hormone management because they still want to have sex. And I think that is amazing. I love that.
Yeah, good for you guys.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what else do they have to do? I mean, they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah. Pickleball.
Again. So I think it's very important. So I like that you have that as one of your pillars.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, thank you for all of your pillars. I think so. To recap, so nutrition, which I agree with, exercise, also agree with, sleep, stress and how you respond to stress, and then sexual health. I think those are awesome pillars. And kind of the things that I talk to my patients about as well. So at the end of all my podcasts, I ask all my guests the same 3 questions. So I don't want you to overthink them, but it's kind of easy tips to help people. Sure. So what is the one food that you think is the most beneficial and why, if you had to pick one food? And I think I have an idea as to what you're going to say, but.
I would say it's an egg.
I knew it. That's exactly what I thought you were going to say. I promise. So that's funny because you're like the fourth person that said that, but tell me why.
Well, an egg is nature's multivitamin, the egg yolk. Um, you heat it up, give it a little moisture, a little humidity for 21 days, and it becomes life. You take that in and you're giving yourself life. You are getting an entire multivitamin along with quality fat and quality protein all in one. And it's the most natural thing that you can consume.
No one has said it like that. So I like that answer the best. That's awesome. But I knew you were going to say eggs because you have chickens too. So I was like, he has to say
I,
eggs.
I almost said a ribeye steak, but I think
Yeah.
egg is probably better.
I eat eggs almost every morning. So that's
Yeah,
one of
I
my 30 foods.
eat a lot of eggs.
Yeah. Okay. What is one easy health tip that anyone can do? So if you had somebody saying, I'm completely overwhelmed, give me one tip that's super easy, maybe even free that anyone could do, what would it be?
1 to 3 tips.
No, just one. You only has to be one.
Oh,
One tip that anyone could do that is free, ideally, so it doesn't cost anything.
yeah. Get outside. Take your shoes off. Get your bare feet on the ground.
Do we just need to stand outside? Do we have to walk?
Oh, I definitely remember movement, right? Movement is key, but getting outside, going for a walk outside, if you can get your bare feet in the dirt and ground yourself to the earth, I think that is one of the most freeing things for your mind, your body, your soul that you can do at any point.
Okay, I like that. And if you have an animal, I would just point out that if you take your animal outside for a walk too, it releases oxytocin. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
My
Absolutely.
dog, I love taking her for a walk. I mean, my husband goes with me sometimes too, but just having your dog, taking him for a walk, it just makes you feel, I don't know.
I
I
actually,
talk to her. I talk to her sometimes too. In full disclosure, I have full on conversations with my dog. Like I talk to her and then I
oh,
talk back to myself in a voice that is her voice and like have full on conversations with her while I'm walking.
there's plenty of days where I sit out in the grass with my bare feet, usually no shirt on, if like there's like sunshine out, and I'll just stare at my chickens, just kind of walking around because I kind of let them free range. But it's one of the most relaxing points of the day sometimes.
You need to move to Oklahoma. There's farmland here, and then I could come have some of your chicken eggs and I could benefit from your garden and we could work together. So
There,
Oklahoma welcomes Dr. Russell.
there you go. Yeah, I'm flying down to Bentonville, Arkansas at 6 a.m.
Oh,
tomorrow morning.
close to us. So think about coming to Oklahoma. We would love to have you in Oklahoma. Very similar weather. It's just we're better than Arkansas. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, Arkansas.
yeah,
We're booming here though. We have the thunder. Like, come on. Like this,
yeah.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Think
Not,
about it. Just think
not
about it before you
easy.
get stuck in Arkansas. Like,
I know.
okay.
I know. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Okay. And then the last thing, what is one thing you wish you would have known 10 years ago about your health? Like just in general, what you could have done for your health. If there was something you could have changed 10 years ago, what would it be, you think?
Hmm. I would say that I wish I probably would have drank less. Like knowing what I know about alcohol. I never thought that I was like an alcoholic by any means, but in college and like after college, drinking on a Friday, Saturday, maybe even Thursday night was like no big deal. And I wish I could go back and change that. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun, but that's that. Because I've always been a relatively healthy person. I've always been in shape. I've been an athlete my whole life. Um, but alcohol is something that kind of slips through the cracks, and people that are very healthy kind of ignore that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a great answer.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Russell, thank you for being a guest on my podcast. Tell everyone, well, I guess I was going to say tell everyone where they can find you. You're not really on social media yet. You don't really have your own social media platform yet. Is that right?
That's correct. I need to figure that one out.
We're going to get Dr. Russell on social media, guys. Don't you worry. Because he and I think, are going to do some collaboration with a group that we both are a part of. And so don't worry, we're going to get him on social media. I want to see pictures of the chickens. I want to see the eggs. I want to see you grounding with your shirt off, all the things.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a website or anything anyone can go to? Or is there a way people can book appointments with you?
Yeah. Right now, one of the companies I'm working with is called LifeForce. MyLifeForce.com is how you can sign up with me. And if you request to see me, I'll happily make room in my schedule to accommodate. But a lot of different things in the works right now. And I know social media is definitely something I'm trying to build, because I want to work for myself. I don't want to necessarily work for other people, and I want to call the shots. And not to say that it's like my way or the highway, but I want to take care of people the way I really think that people should be taken care of.
I love that. And Modern Endocrine is, we're doing our own thing. We're making our own building. We are going to have an amazing, area where we do a lot of functional medicine stuff and hyperbaric and red light and all the things. So just remember, don't forget about, there's Guthrie, Oklahoma, just right north of Oklahoma City, lots of farms there. So we're going to keep trying to get Dr. Russell back to Oklahoma. But thank you for being my guest. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Back to the Basics. If you like this, please share it with your friends, your family, anyone that you think this might help become more healthy. And then join us next week for another episode. The information presented, including any materials discussed, referenced, or linked within this podcast, are for general educational purposes only, not the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed from you listening to this podcast or utilizing any of the information provided. I am a doctor, but I am not talking to you as your doctor. The information provided is not intended to diagnose or treat health problems, or take the place of the professional medical care provided by your doctor. If you are experiencing any health problems, including problems you believe have been touched upon in any respect within this podcast, you should consult your doctor about the problems without delay. You may ask your doctor whether he or she believes the information I have provided would be helpful to you, but you should still consult your doctor immediately and follow his or her medical advice as your treating physician. I'm just here to provide you basic knowledge about the issues we discuss so you are more aware of them and can better discuss them with your doctor. That's why we call it Back to the Basics. Join me on the next episode as we continue our journey.